If you've ever opened a budget planner and thought, where do I even get these numbers from? This video is for you. Hi, I'm Julie from the Bradley Edit. I create digital planners for GoodNotes, and on this channel, I'll be sharing real budgeting sessions, digital planning tips, organizations, and the systems I use to keep our home and finances running smoothly as a full-time working mom. Let's get started with the budget setup. Today, I'm going to show you how I actually set up my monthly budget using worksheets in my planners. We have a how to make a budget section, and it has a 7-step process for setting up your core monthly budget. If we go to the core monthly budget, this is where we're going to put all of our numbers, and the titles of each section is hyperlinked to the worksheet it corresponds to. So we're going to start with the income. So this is the monthly income worksheet. I'm going to use the Zoom window for writing just because it makes it a little bit easier. In our household, we have 2 employment incomes, and we also receive the Canada Child Benefit. So I'm going to call our incomes Income A and Income B. And then we have our Canada Child Benefit. So the frequency, my husband and I each get paid bi-weekly. And the Canada Child Benefit comes monthly. Paycheck A is $2,400 bi-weekly, and paycheck B is $1,950 bi-weekly. And the Canada Child Benefit is $407 monthly. What's included here are some conversion factors, so depending on your frequency of how often you get paid, and this is to help you convert everything to a monthly amount just to make your monthly core budget setup easier. So for the biweekly payments, the conversion factor is times 2.17, and then the monthly Canada Child Benefit doesn't have a conversion factor. So the math for this is 5208, and this one is 4231, and then 407, with our total monthly net income of $9,846. So now we're going to move everything over to the core budget. I'm going to use the lasso tool. So you just circle, and we're going to copy, and we'll go back to the core budget. Drop it in there. Move the amounts. All right, so there's our income complete. Now we're going to move on to fixed expenses. This is the monthly fixed expenses worksheet. So this is where you're going to put all of your monthly bills. So think things like rent and mortgage, insurance, phones, subscriptions, daycare costs, etc. So we're going to list all of the bills, when they're due, how frequently they're paid, the amount, and then if we need to convert anything to monthly, so for us, some of our bills are bi-weekly, but a majority are monthly, then we'll do our conversion factor and convert everything to a monthly amount. So I'm going to start with the 3 bills that we have that are bi-weekly. So again, we'll use the Zoom window. So our mortgage, car lease, and daycare are all bi-weekly. This comes out on payday. And this comes out on the Friday after payday. And same as the daycare. All right, so the amount for these, so our mortgage biweekly is $784. The car, $438. And daycare right now is a little bit more money because it's summer, and so it costs a little bit extra to send the kids full time. So conversion factor for all of these biweekly payments, 2.17, and that gives us a monthly of $1,702, $951, and $1,389. All right, now we're going to move on to the rest of our bills, so the monthly bills. So there's our fixed expenses finished. Now we're going to move on to variable expenses. So these are expenses that can change month to month depending on what comes up. I'm going to share with you our family budget, but it's really important to keep in mind that you need to find what works for your family and for your income. So if we move to the variable expenses worksheet, in here it explains you should review your last 1 to 3 months of spending and figure out where your money's actually going. So you can either go back and look at your last 3 months worth of spending, or you can start tracking from today and kind of play with your budget and figure out what numbers are going to work for you. We're going to go do this right on the core budget just because it's a bit easier. So for our family, our buckets are gas, groceries, household supplies, and entertainment. Anything outside of these, I tend to use my sinking funds for, which you'll see. This adds up to $23.18 a month. And once we get into showing how I budget, because we're paid bi-weekly, I set my core monthly budget up so that I can make sure that what we're allocating for our sinking funds, investments, and debt payoff align with what our monthly income is. But reality is, when you're paid on a bi-weekly basis, it's a lot easier to budget by paycheck. So in future videos, I'll be showing you how we do that. This is simply how to come up with your budget and make sure your income is enough to cover all your expenses. So sinking funds are definitely something that's personal to each household. I have found that having sinking funds and having at least some money saved up before large expenses really makes spending a lot more enjoyable. It makes Christmas easier. It makes vacation a lot more enjoyable. So I definitely recommend sinking funds. So my sinking funds are typically set up to pay a little bit each month all year long. But depending, you could structure it so, say you have a goal 6 months from now, you could just divide whatever your total goal is by 6, and then that's what your contribution needs to be monthly. For us, I just break it down in 12-month increments. So let's do my 4 sinking funds. So we have, first one is Christmas. So I like to have this by like mid-November. We like to have $2,000. And I have 12 months, which means the monthly amount is $167 per month. My next sinking fund is our vacation fund. So we take a family vacation every the first week after school lets out at the end of June. So we like to have this by June 15th. This year I saved just under $2,000, which was a great help, but wasn't quite enough. So next year I'm going to do $3,000. So how many months from the due date? So we'll start saving right away for that. So 12 months. And that's $250 a month for that sinking fund. Then we have family. So this is for things like gifts, kids' birthdays, sports, and yearly subscriptions. So this, I like to just do it all year long. So we're going to say this is due by December 31st. The goal is $5,000. And divided that by 12 months and 17 per month. Then the last sinking fund is a rainy day fund. So this is just kind of like a miscellaneous extra little cushion. And I have put in here $2,000, 12 months, which is $167 per month. So the goal of these sinking funds is to alleviate pressure when expenses come up, such as Christmas, or when we spend money to go on a vacation, or when the kid's birthday rolls around, that we're not having to take it out of our cash flow. A problem that I want to address that I ran into is, so I went into 2026 funding my sinking funds, everything was going well. But then I have ran into a season of my life where our expenses have exceeded what I had saved in the sinking funds. So I'm going to show you how I'm navigating that season of our life and what I'm going to do to get my sinking funds back on track. But in a beautiful world, this is what would happen every single month. But the reality is sometimes I have to pause what's going into the sinking fund. Okay, so let's fill in our monthly savings worksheet. So we have an RSP, and we contribute $300 monthly to that. An RESP for our 2 children, and we contribute $250 per month to that. And most recently, I have started investing in a TFSA through Wealthsimple, doing self-directed investments, and I'm doing $50 per pay into that, so that works out to $109 monthly. And what has become apparently clear to me during this season of life is that we are extremely underfunded in our cash flow. We do not have a strong emergency fund. We have a strong income and we have a good net worth. And on paper, we look really secure. But what I'm feeling is the pinch when we are going through seasons of high spending. And so everything just kind of piles up at one time, and my sinking funds just were not fully funded to be prepared for that amount of spending. And so, what I want to focus on in the coming months is really building up our emergency fund so that we just feel a bit more secure. And then you'll see me also wanting to fund our sinking funds a bit more heavily after this summer, just so that we're kind of ahead and so that any expenses coming up don't feel unexpected. And so in here for this budget, we're going to put $450 a month to go into the emergency fund. No total amount, but our total is going to be $1109 for our savings. So now let's transcribe this over onto the core budget. So now we're moving on to debt. So I've included our mortgage and our car lease, which are both debts, in our fixed expenses. So I'm not going to include them on this debt side. What I will include on my debt worksheet is going to be my home equity line of credit that we have. So in this worksheet, there is a link to a calculator.net that's going to help determine a clear picture for debt payoff. So this is a place where you can list all your debts, the balances, when they're due, your minimum payments, the interest rates that you have, if you're making extra payments, when that debt's going to be paid off. You have a couple options when you're paying off debt. You can do the snowball method or the avalanche method. We did have years ago a lot of debt and we worked really hard to pay it down. Now what we have left is this home equity line of credit. I want to be transparent about it, is we you're going to see me not making extra payments towards it because we're in a different financial season right now. Building an in-law suite as a extension on our home for my elderly in-laws to move into, and so our mortgage is up for renewal soon, and we're looking into doing the construction loan. So right now I feel like I just want to be stacking cash into my emergency fund rather than aggressively paying down my home equity line of credit. So what you're going to see on here is I'm prioritizing savings into my sinking funds as well as the emergency fund. And so that might not be the decision that everyone would make, and that's okay. It's personal finance. And so this is a budget that reflects a plan that's right for our family with our current goals. So, but I just wanted you to know there is a place, and this is a great resource, this calculator.net, to help you figure out what your monthly payments would be, how much interest you're going to pay, and how long it's going to take you to pay off your debt. So let's go back to our core budget, and I'm going to put my debt on there, which is our HELOC. The balance is $39,500, and our minimum payment is $178 per month. And that's what we're going to be paying for right now until we figure out all of the renovation, mortgage renewal, etc. So now that we have all of our numbers in here, we're going to do a total. So let's enter our total income, which was $98.46. Our fixed expenses were $5,118. Variable expenses, $23.18. Total sinking funds, $1,001. Our total savings, $1,109. And our total debt payment is $178. So at the end, we end up with a closing balance of $122. I want to talk about that for a second because I know a lot of people follow a strict zero-based budget, and that's where every dollar is assigned a job. And while I completely understand the purpose of that, I found it doesn't always work that way, and that's not how our life actually flows. For me, I value flexibility, and the leftover money becomes part of a buffer that helps cover unexpected things, gives us some breathing room. So the goal of budgeting isn't perfection, it's progress. It's giving your money a plan so you can live a life you actually feel good about. So if you've tried budgeting before and gave up, I want to encourage you to keep going. Your budget doesn't have to be perfect to work. It has to be something you're consistent with and adjust as life changes. So over the next few videos, what I'm going to be walking you through is real life example of how I budget my paycheck. So in this planner, if we click on a month, it'll take you to the monthly calendar. And at the top, you can see we have 8 monthly trackers. You click on the first one, it's going to take you to your monthly goals. So this is where you can set up what you want to focus on each month. There's a tab for monthly budget, which is essentially what your core budget is. So you could copy in this core budget if you want to budget on a monthly basis. But what I really like is that paycheck 1, 2, and 3. So for someone who gets bi-weekly payments, this is really helpful. So you're going to see me in the next video walk through an actual paycheck. So I'll be writing down what fixed expenses are coming out of that paycheck, what I'll be spending on a bi-weekly. I'll be breaking down my sinking fund or what I want to contribute bi-weekly. And in actuality, I'm going to have to pause my sinking funds for the next couple of pays because everything just kind of the way it lined up we just owe a little bit more on our credit cards than we typically would, and I need to prioritize paying that off because I don't want to have to pay interest on those credit cards. So in my next video, I'll walk you through how I budget each paycheck, and if you'd like to budget along with me, you can find my planner linked in the description below. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I hope to see you in the next video.